Hey everybody, welcome to a demo on top-down assembly modeling within SolidWorks. Some people refer to top-down in other CAD programs as in context, and sometimes within SolidWorks we refer to it as in context. So either one, I'll go back and forth between them terms-wise, top-down assembly modeling or in context assembly modeling. First, just kind of a quick background that's important. For many years in the CAD world, we have used a different kind of modeling system, and the idea was, and it has been since the 80s or whenever it was that we've been doing solid modeling, that you modeled each of the components separately that you were designing into an assembly. Then you mated those together somehow and proceeded on from there. And if you had a team, maybe you had 2 or 3 members of the team, you would divide up those parts appropriately to each one by skills or methods or whatever, and they would each model individual parts. And at some point, you'd put all those parts together into an assembly, and then we'd go back and check and make sure everybody had modeled everything correctly. And you'd always find somebody had oopsed a hole diameter or location or center or something, and then you could fix it. And at least you had that digital pre-assembly to look at before you actually went through the expense and trouble of actually making parts and then finding out they didn't work. So it worked well. I worked way better than back in the drawing board days and all that kind of thing. And then, in more recent times, a better way to work really is this idea, and I use it constantly, is this top-down assembly modeling. The idea that's different is instead of just making individual parts and modeling them, you can model some of the parts as you need to or as it's appropriate within the context of the assembly. And so, looking at this hole diameter here, this hole diameter, or location of this hole center to center to this hole, you can capture those pieces of information just so easily, and you can much more often guarantee that you're going to have parts that fit together. And that's really where the where the value of this comes in. And then also, if you're going to make changes, the changes will be tied together from component to component. So if you change the whole location of something or the diameter, whatever has been built in context will move and adapt with it. So I know that's a lot of verbiage, but I just wanted to kind of get that out there. And then again, like I do with all my demos, I'm going to keep this really simple and basic. Just going to add 2 or 3 parts to this to give you the idea. So okay, let's go. So what we're looking at on screen right now is just a component. It's called EX10, whatever that is. And right now it really is a part. We can see over here in the tree all the steps that it took to model it. In order to start this process, we want to start an assembly. And generally you want to start with the component that's the key part in your assembly. If I was going to do a gas engine, or a V8 engine or whatever, I would bring in the engine block first and start my assembly from there, and then start working out from that engine block with all the other componentry. Now keep in mind as I go through this, I'm going to stay within the top-down model system, or within the in-context system, that I'm going to model all these parts in the context of the assembly, just to keep it simple. But there's no rule about that. If you've already modeled parts, or you're downloading parts from some website or from another user someplace, you can totally just go in those and insert those and mate them just like you're used to. This is for the parts where it warrants it. It really helps to just, I call it growing the parts, almost organically growing them off of some main features. So here's this part with some features. To get started, we have to turn it into assembly. Easiest way to do that is go to up here to SolidWorks, File, Make Assembly from Part. So we are looking at a part. We saw the parts tree. Now we go to make that part into an assembly. Come on. Okay, and then basically what all this yellow over here says is drop that part into place. So I'm just dropping it in there. Now if somebody just walked in the room right now, was looking at what I have on my computer here, they literally might think, well, you kind of got the same thing you had 5 minutes ago. I don't know if it's a part, an assembly, or whatever, but I just see a single component. We can see up here that says assembly. We can see some assembly tools. We can see this icon with the little green brick on it. So we know we really are in an assembly. And so we've listed our first part. We're ready to start building some parts off of this. I'm going to start out extremely simple. I'm just going to put a cover on this surface right here, and I'm not even going to have holes in it or any kind of mounting system. We'll just assume it's put on there with some epoxy or glue or something like that, and just seals it on there. And just for the first one. So the way to get started is you're going to insert new components. So I'm in the assembly toolbar. I come up here to insert and go to insert new part. First thing it comes up with is a little green check mark. Now, a lot of times people will just go out here, going, well, I don't know, I guess I'm supposed to put that somewhere. Feel free to look down here, and even like in the old AutoCAD days, it'll give you some clue about the command you're in and what it's asking for. So it says select the face or the plane on which you want to position this new part. So I'm going to start it right here. I'm actually going to put that cover right on that surface. So I'm going to pick that surface. And notice that the part grayed out or went transparent on us, or ghosted, if you will. And it will do that with all components. If I had 15 pieces in this assembly already, all the ones that I'm not making or working on right now or producing right now will ghost out and be just sort of there, good enough for relationship and visual relationship. But the part that I'm really working on is over here in the tree, whatever's in blue. So I'll expand that. It gives me a clue right here that I'm working in just this new part that I've assembled. Haven't modeled anything on it yet. I just chose a surface, and what does it do? It puts it right into a sketch mode. Look in the upper right hand corner here. That's just the regular sketch icon. Really, from this point on this particular component that I'm building, I can just think of it like, how would I model it? And in this case, it's easy because I'm going to reuse the geometry that's already here. And that there's kind of this bowling pin looking boss surface. That's all I'm going to do is make a plate to stick on there. So since I'm in a sketch mode, I'm going to use convert entities. I'm just going to select that surface. Let's see if I really got the surface. It's kind of hard to tell from this angle. Yeah, you can tell by the origin. If you look at that red origin, notice where it is. And so now I want to convert entities. So I'm going up here to convert entities. I had selected that surface, and there's my shape. That's literally all I need. Look at these relations. Those are ones that you may not have used before. It says on edge. I'll come back to that a little bit later. It's basically a tracing of that outline. And so now I can turn it into a part. It's just a sketch until I turn it into something. So now I'll go to Features, go to Extrude. Let's make that a full 1/8 of an inch thick. 0.125, say OK. And it's not exciting, but there's my first part. Now just close this right here. What that's saying is stop editing that particular part. You can either click this icon here, or click this guy here, and it'll get back to the full assembly. Right now we're just kind of looking at a ghost of the rest of the assembly. So I'll pick on this guy, and now we can see I've got two parts. I've got my original, and I've got this little cover. And the boss comes by and says, hey, that's not quite done yet. We are going to epoxy or glue that on, but we don't want this sharp edge out here, so let's put a fillet on that. So I'm going to go back and edit that part. So that part is this number 2 part here. That is, it says part 4. The next part, and go to edit part. Now watch for this, because you can really get in the wrong place. Watch for the brick, the yellow brick that we're used to seeing as a component or part with the little blue brick on it. That's a component symbol that's within this assembly, and it's saying edit that component. So I'm clicking on that. The other part ghosts out. Now I can just think of this like any other part and go to whatever command I'm looking for. I'm going to fillet. I'm going to grab this edge. It's a little bit of a big fillet for what I'm visualizing anyway. So let's go down and make that 1/10 of an inch to 50 thou. And say OK. And now I'm done with my part. Remember, it just kind of glues on there, so it's okay that it's simple geometry. Now, back to what I said at the beginning. I don't have to go check this later and wonder, does this thing fit and match the size of this original component? It was derived from it. It was brought out of it in context of the assembly. And so whatever geometry I have there is going to flow along with the part. That's one of the advantages here. I didn't have to type in any dimensions. I don't have to define it. I'm just using the geometry I already have. So on this next piece, we'll do it a little bit more involved. We'll go ahead and put a couple holes in it. I'm not going to cut this keyway in it. I'm just going to have 2 circular holes just for demo purposes, but you'll see that the process is basically the same. So what do? Go back into Insert Components, Insert New Part. I get the green check mark again saying, where do you want to put your sketch? Right here on this surface. Okay, and I want to convert entities again. So I'll select that surface and go to Convert Entities. And it traces around the outside. Now I'm going to grab this circle and convert entities so that I get that hole. And I'm going to grab this one, notice what that is, and convert entities. And then, like I said, I'm not going to do the keyway, so I'm going to go ahead and close this up. I can just drag this to this other point, and now I've got a complete circle. So now I've got the outline, big circle, little circle. I'm ready to extrude. And this one's going to be thicker, so let's make that 0.25 and say OK. And this one isn't going to get rounded because I'm picturing some other parts are going to be attached to this, and so the sharp corner is not going to be out there where anybody can get an owie on their finger. So I'm done making that part, so I'll go ahead and remember I can do it here or here. Kind of depends on where I'm looking, which one I grab, but I can grab this, and now I'm back looking at the whole assembly. It's asking for a rebuild there. I don't always do it exactly when it says, but it doesn't hurt to go ahead if you see one of those guys and do a rebuild. So now we've built 3 components in just no time at all. And this last one especially, to me, it's just awesome that it works this way. Is I know that this hole diameter is a match for that hole diameter, and that this one is a match for this guy. Because I derived them, I converted entities and brought it right from them. So that it's a good reminder. Don't just draw a circle there. You're back to drawing your own individual component that way, and you're not deriving from any of the geometry that's already here. And to get the benefit out of this, that's what we want to do. So convert entities comes up a lot, because then we know that we've kind of traced that, and we get a relationship with the original geometry. Okay, so couple, not so exciting parts, but you get the idea. Let's put in a shaft now. I'm going to have a large diameter shaft that goes in to here. I'm going to go ahead and leave this a closed plate so that it's not going to go all the way to the end of that, but then it'll stick out a little ways. So, it's not making a plate this time, so it's a little bit different, but you can still think about it kind of similar. I got to start a sketch somewhere. So go into Component, New Part. I'm going to start it on the outside of this spacer guy here, and in this case I really want to see if I can get a hold of that. There we go. I definitely want to convert entities because I want this shaft to be connected to this information, so if something changes they'll move together. If I had just drawn a circle, then it would be independent and it wouldn't be tied into the past geometry. So now I've got a circle there. Let's go to Features. We'll go to Extrude. I'm going to go 2 directions. Let me drag this one just back so it just doesn't hit that other side of the plate. Just give it some space there. And then this one can come out quite a ways more. And I'll also give it an exact number. So that one's going to be 2 inches. And say OK. And then I'm done modeling the part. It's just a shaft. And so I can close this up and I'm back at the assembly. Now, maybe none of that is very exciting or interesting. What's cool here, besides that we're driving the geometry from this, is that they are connected together. And so I'm going to go in and change the diameter on this initial part, the first thing that we had, the EX10, and I'm going to change the diameter of this, and if everything goes right, and I don't guarantee it, I'll stop the excuse me, I'll stop the video and start a little bit over if it doesn't work, but I think it will, is I'm going to go change the diameter of the hole in this main casting, and everything else is going to update to match. Cross my fingers and my toes. So here we go. So how do I do that? It's pretty straightforward. This is still a component. I know it's that first thing, so I'm going to right click on it and go to edit the part. That little blue brick is your reminder. Edit the part. It says, hey, this has to be saved first. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. I'm going to just save it to the directory that I've been using. It says, do you want to save internally or externally? If you're going to do it within the assembly, that's fine. That's the default. Or if you need to specify a path, where you want to put it. I'm going to stay with inside the assembly and say OK. And you'll notice that everything else will ghost out or, kind of get transparent, because the only thing we're editing is that initial part. Okay, so then, like I said before, it's the blue. Come on, wake up. Okay, come on. There it goes. The blue highlights there in that list lets me know that's the part I'm in the edit mode of. Everything else is not being edited. Well, and so I want to go in and change this hole inside here. So I just selected it so I can find it in the tree. I'm going to go find its sketch and edit that. And I'm going to look straight on it because I know this will move around on me a little bit. I don't think I did this, but whoever did, they didn't really dimension all this. So we got a bunch of blue stuff. Not a good idea. It should all be black and fully defined. But I just want to show you the concept. So I'm going to grab this circle and tell it not to be 0.688, but to be half an inch. So I'm going to 0.5. And because I changed it, it moved around a little bit there. I'm going to just grab its center point, grab the origin, and tell them to be coincident. Okay, so at least it's centered up. Notice that we changed. We went pretty dramatically smaller size diameter. And I'm going to just say OK because I'm done with the change. And then you can even see it in this preview already. The shaft has resized to match that hole. That's not all, but that's a start. So I'm done making the change to the original model. And look at that. The shaft changed size. That's cool. I didn't have to go tell it to do anything. But the hole in this plate also changed size. This one stayed the same because we didn't make any changes, but this one changed to match. So they are connected together. And now, I'll be the first to tell you that many people out there will complain that they have a hard time keeping all these wires from crossing, keeping this all connected so it's clean and smooth. And I won't get into it right now, all the ways that we try to get around that and make that work. But just at least notice that it really can and does work, as you can tie it together so that when you make a change to one, it can drive the other. Okay. Let's do one more just for, so you can see the process again, and we'll call this good. What I generally will have students do is find a part that has all these different kinds of mounting surfaces on it, and just grow some parts organically out of it, off of it, in it, that are based on the geometry. The only thing I would have them do that I haven't been doing is, when I make this shaft, don't make it exactly the size of the hole it's going into. Make it a little smaller so we have some clearance. Or if there's anything else that you think functionally by, the fit between the relationship between the parts ought to be different, then you're going to change that. But even if I used offset, it would still offset from that original geometry, and then if that original geometry changed later in the design, they would update together. Okay, so I'm just going to go make another plate in this, and then I'm going to show one little thing to watch out for, and we'll call this one good. So you get the drill. You kind of get where we're going with this. So I go up to Insert Component, New Part, Where, on this surface. I'm going to convert entities to trace that. Grab this guy, convert entities. And there's another way to do that, but for right now I won't go there. But I just selected both of those and convert entities because I really do want a ring on here that's going to have a hole in it. And so I'm going to go ahead and grab that as well, convert entities. And now I know that that thing is going to fit. So I'll go to Features, Extrude. This one's going to be half an inch thick. Say OK. And I know it's, a little bit like watching paint dry to see this over and over again, but I want you to see the cycle. You got to make sure that you know you're in the assembly like I am right now, or that you're in one of these parts and editing it. So watch for the blue, and then watch for that icon over here and this guy to be turned on when you are editing a part. Here's the last little piece. So you've already seen some of the good things of this, and I think you can go from here and just kind of play around with it. I want to give you a warning that notice that in every case I'm editing the part. So I'm making a new part and editing the part if I need to make changes to it. I'm going to do something in the assembly. Let's say that instead of building these parts the way we have, that we wanted to drill a hole in this surface here at assembly. Not before, not when it's manufactured as separate components, but now I'm going to drill it and pin it so that it'll hold together or not rotate or whatever it is we want it to do or not do. And so I just want to kind of show you that. Before I do, let me show you what the issue is. We'll go back to this ring and I'm going to open it. Okay, just go to open part. And you can see it looks just like the part that we've been looking at. So just notice that. We've got the big hole and the little hole. And here's a warning too. It says save changes. Yes. If you said no, then the work you did on that is gone. So just say yes. It goes back, so we're looking at the assembly. Here's the little warning thing. So unless I wanted to do this, if I am drilling in at assembly and I don't want the drill hole to exist back when this ring was made, I want it to just happen here at assembly, this is how I would do it. Is I would just go ahead and click on that surface. I'm not going to edit a particular part or insert a part. I'm just going to go to here and just do it like I'm used to, start a sketch. It gives me a warning. It says, hey, you started to sketch something within the context of the assembly, but it's not a part or a sub-assembly. In other words, it's not going to update together. So let me show you what I mean. So I'll grab this. I'm just going to randomly place a small pinhole here. I'm not going to worry about the size for right now. And I'm going to go into the assembly toolbar under assembly features and go extruded cut. And I'm just going to make sure that guy goes back in there a ways. It doesn't really matter. It's just going to be a blind hole. And you can see now that I just got a hole. I just punched a hole in there. But if I go to open this ring now, let's go back and do that. If I go to open this ring, the little hole doesn't show. Because back when that ring was made, it didn't exist. This is a tree structure, a historical order. And so it didn't happen yet because we drilled the hole at assembly. So let me close that back up. But it does exist here. Same thing, and I won't do it, I won't take the time. If I went and opened this part up, it doesn't have the little hole in it because it didn't exist yet back at the part or component level. It only exists here where we're looking at it in assembly. So be careful, because if you drew a hole thinking it was going to be in the ring and stay there from the beginning of its creation, this isn't the way to do it. If I want to change that part, I've got to go to edit that part. If I want to change this part, I've got to go to edit that part. Okay, so that's the basics of top-down assembly modeling or in-context modeling. Give it a try. I think you'll really like it. Yes, you can run into all kinds of headaches. Just be really aware of where you're at, that you're editing a component or you're in the assembly. Good luck.